All right, the big breaking news. Shedeur Sanders is third string. Dillon Gabriel is second string. Kevin Stefanski, an offensive coach, who's a bright guy. That's what he's chosen. So let's go to Urban Meyer, who did plenty of Colorado games, 3 national titles, 17 seasons now, Fox Sports, our analyst. All right, I was a Shedeur guy over a Dillon Gabriel guy. I watched Shedeur run for his life at Colorado, and he was really productive. Are you surprised that Shedeur is backing up Dillon Gabriel?
I actually listened to your last segment, and I agree with you that the coach of the Browns, stepped out and said, I'm going to pick this quarterback, Dillon Gabriel, in the 3rd round, and then, by the way, Shedeur is still available. We'll take him. Unless it was obvious, I think that, I think you're right. I think the coach of the Browns said, I put my name on him, and I'm going to give him an opportunity first. So it sounds to me like it was real close. I also heard that part of your comments. So if it's real close, they're going to go with the guy that they spent all the time evaluating, draft him, and they don't want to be wrong. But they also have to win. So if Shedeur gets better and better, which I think we all agree he will, at some point, you could see that move happening.
I saw Michigan recently got some penalties, and you and I probably see this differently. The way I look at college football is that it used to be the sin in college sports was buying a high school player. That was death penalty. It's over. I mean, $100 handshake for a senior, you get a slap on the wrist. You can't buy a high schooler. Well, now it's a cottage industry. That's what you do. You buy high schoolers. So it's hard for me to get worked up. I don't even know what's illegal in college sports. I just don't get worked up over much. I know Connor Stallions did something wrong. I know, but it bothers you more. There was a quote I saw that you said that, maybe Harbaugh should be suspended in the NFL. So I'll clarify that. Where are you right now on Michigan, Harbaugh, and what transpired?
Yeah, a friend sent me that quote. I've never said that. That was a typical media guy saying that. No, I on the podcast, we talked about the penalty, and I brought up, I said, do you realize that when Jim Tressel was fired from Ohio State, he was suspended, I want to say 6 games. He went on to be suspended by the Indianapolis Colts. Now, did I say that Jim? No, of course not. I didn't say that. And I actually even said that, I don't think it will, but I threw that out there because that's a fact. And it was made clear throughout that the NFL wanted to at least respect the decisions made by the NCAA. So, no, I never, to answer your question, I never said that. But that's typical. Someone's going to put something in a headline here. Colin and I are talking about. That was never said.
Okay. It is interesting, though. And, again, my take is, you're buying high schoolers. Listen, obviously, if I know your signals, it's an advantage, but there is there is a little bit of a network. I watched the special on it where there is some scouting done. Like how egregious is it to you? iPhone scouting, multiple iPhone stuff. How do you view that?
Well, very rarely do you, someone brought up the Reggie Bush thing. Did that give USC a competitive advantage on the field? They brought up Jim Tressel's situation. Did that give them a competitive advantage on the field? No, of course not. Guys were trading in memorabilia for tattoos. The thing that this is, and I've heard people say, oh, come on, what's the big deal? If it wasn't a big deal, Colin, why would they risk their reputation or careers and $30 million fine for the university or for the Wolverines? I'll answer that question. It's a huge deal. If the defensive players know run or pass, the amount of time, I would probably say at least 30 to 40 hours per week, the defensive players are trying to figure out from the stances of the offensive linemen, from the weight on their fingertips, to figuring out from the stance of the receivers, is it run or pass? Is it that much of an advantage? I can't overemphasize, of course it is. You have 50 to 55-year-old men sitting in meeting rooms forever trying to find some kind of tip to give to their players. If it's just that simple, if it's a run or pass. Now, if you can know if it's right or left, that's a whole other animal. So to answer your question, any advantage that's gotten illegally, then that's a major deal.
So the college football I just saw this morning, they've made a tweak to it where strength of schedule is now going to matter more, which I'm a huge fan of. Incentivize more heavyweight matchups. And I said this last year. I said Ohio State losing at Autzen, the way they lost on the last play, controversial. I thought more of Ohio State than I did Oregon. I said, all I knew is after that game, if you can come down to a final play at Autzen, the loudest stadium I've ever been with a great top 6 or 7 program, you can win a natty. And I said after that loss, they're going to play Oregon again, you watch, and they're going to beat them. And they did. And my take is if Texas goes to Columbus here in a week and loses 34-28, they're driving for the winning score and there's an interception, my take is I'm blown away by Texas. If you can go to Ohio State. And so I love the idea of stop punishing college kids for losing a game against a great team. Your take on what the NCAA now is really pivoting to, which is we're not going to punish you as much when you lose to good teams.
I hope that happens, Colin. That's supposed to have been the rule since, I remember from the BCS era to the 4-team college football playoff to the 12 teams. So I got to reread this thing because that's confusing to me. Strength of schedule has always been a big part of the equation that the committee is supposed to look at. So maybe there's some type of analytics they're going to use for that. But I guess I'm confused. That's always been supposedly a part of what the committee looks at. I'm going to give you something, Colin. I think the committee needs to go away. I love these new proposals that are out there about teams play in to win. The Big Ten had one out there. I'm not sure it's still out there anymore, but a 4-4-2-2-1, which means you take the top 6 teams in the Big Ten and they earn it on the field. There's no committee. So 1 would play 2 in the Big Ten championship game, 3 would play 5, 4 would play 6, and there's your 4 teams that go to the playoff. So I hope they're at some point, and this is not against the committee because I try to figure out who the best teams are. That's my job, to watch the film. I'm wrong a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because, there's so many variables involved. So to put that in the hotel room, a bunch of people making decisions who's in and who's out, I'd much rather come up with a system that this is a play-in tournament that you get in and the most important people make that decision. The players. If you win, you're in. If you lose, you're out.
So the Buckeyes have announced their starter. They said it was close. Julian Sand. I've only seen YouTube stuff. I've only seen high schools. I don't know what he's going to be. What do you expect? What do you know? What do you hear on him?
I hear a lot. The minute he walked on campus, there was comments made about Dwayne Haskins type arm action and this great release. The ball flies out of his hands. He's got great anticipation, accuracy. And then recently I heard a lot about his escapability, about to be able to keep plays alive. So everything I'm mentioning are just incredible attributes of a quarterback. So the interesting one is Keenholz fought his ass off, which, I'm a fan of his. And to see that, so they don't, I hear people say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. I've always disagreed with that. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 2 quarterbacks. And so I think at some point this will become a strength. This is going to be really interesting to watch in this game about the way 2 quarterback coaches who are head coaches manage because you can say Arch Manning's not much different than Julian Sand. He's not done a lot either. So you better protect these quarterbacks. That means don't have many balls down the middle of the field, work the outsides, and, give them a bunch of easy throws to start that game. Because it would be a mistake to just hand the ball to these guys and let them go play early in their careers like this.
So Belichick has 40 transfers. So I've said if I was a college football coach, I'd try to limit it to about 10. Sometimes you do need a slot corner and you don't have it. So and Sark brought in 10 transfers. Mac Brown said, it can be dicey. It's hard to create chemistry with a high school recruiting team. Not, at Florida, before the NIL, you get teams where the chemistry is an issue. To bring in 40 guys and try to build chemistry, how would you do it? I mean, how do you have 40 new faces and make it work in 6 months?
Well, some people have, and then some people it failed miserable. The recent one that failed miserable was the Florida State. They go from an undefeated team to a bunch of transfers, and it didn't work out. But then you saw, Michigan State had the lightning in the bottle the one year, and Colorado brought in a bunch of and turned around a really poor program. So I think 40 is a lot. To answer your question, how do you develop chemistry and culture on a team when you're getting them in June and July? I'm going to answer honestly. I have no idea. I don't know how you do that. Obviously, Coach Belichick's a smart guy, and he's got a great staff around him. He's going to figure it out. But to answer, you asked me a point-blank question. My answer is I don't have any idea.
So Jeremiah Smith may be the most talented freshman I've ever seen in college football. I go back years and years. This is an old school name. I remember Pitt had a guy named Hugh Green years and years ago. I can remember watching him as an underclassman in college and thinking, man, he looks like a man. He's like 20 years old. Hugh Green, look it up. Is there, if I said, I thought Jeremiah Smith looked like a pro, was there in all your years at Florida, all your years at Ohio State, Utah, Bowling Green, go through all of it. Take out Jeremiah Smith. Was there ever a freshman that walked on to any of your program? Here he comes onto campus, and you thought he probably could play in the NFL? Because I think Jeremiah Smith could play in the NFL today. Did you ever have one of those players?
I did. I had one. Percy Harvin.
Oh,
he walked on campus, and I've never, ever seen anything like what he could do with his skill set. To this day, I still believe he's one of the greatest to ever play. So let me say this about Jeremiah too, and I'm going to do this on Big Noon. He had a great scenario last year. So an elite wide receiver's best friends are number one, a running quarterback, Will Howard. They had that. Number two, a strong run game. They had that with two terrific running backs. And number three, a strong number two. That was Emeka. All three of those guys are gone. The running quarterback's gone, the strong run game's gone, and the Emeka's gone. So we're going to see how he does, because last year at Texas, not one snap was played. I just finished the film yesterday. Now, I called it the stop Jeremiah defense. Not one time, Colin, did they leave Jeremiah by himself. As a result, he had a couple catches for, like, say, 6 yards. So it was a perfect scenario for this talented guy last year. This year, it's a completely different animal. He's still as talented as you got, but teams will not leave him singled up unless they can. And if you don't have a run game, you can put two guys on him.
Yeah. Urban Meyer, as always, great stuff, Coach. Getting ready for the season. Going to be on a plane here in a few days. Can't wait.
So good to see you, brother.
All right, Urban Meyer.